good morning, and welcome to the Brenda Perryman Show right here on TV 33, WHPR, Comcast 90 in Detroit, and all over the world, courtesy of the World Wide Web and even more. There's so many ways to watch us, and I have a special show for you this morning. I have, secondly, on my second guest, it's State Representative Kyra Bolden, and we're going to be talking about some very important things. But first and foremost, I'd like to introduce you to an out-of-town visitor, a genius in her own right, Miss Nkiru Okoye. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am fabulous. And
Listen to that voice.
Wonderful just being here on your show.
The voice just sings. The voice sings. You know, you can tell music people, even when they talk, you hear lyrics. Music and all of that. So welcome to the cold weather.
Well, I came from New York, so we had some cold weather.
Yeah,
of course, it wasn't quite as cold.
I know. Well, you have a big weekend coming up.
Yes, I do.
Next week.
Yes,
and we're going to talk a little about a little background, just a little background where you went to school and everything. And then we're going to talk about the real exciting stuff that's been going on in your life. Now, are you originally from New York?
I am.
What part?
Well, actually, I was born in Manhattan, and then I grew up on Long Island.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Long Island. I've been there once or twice. So you went to high school in Long Island?
I did, yeah.
And then college. Where'd you go?
I went to Oberlin Conservatory of Music.
That's a great conservatory.
It is.
And did you always want to be a composer or deal in music?
Well, I always was. We just didn't know it. I didn't. It sounds kind of odd, but my mom taught my sister and me. We learned to read very early, and they used to, in the children's books, you think of like Beatrix Potter books, and you'd say, Peter Rabbit opened the door and said, "Good morning," or something. And so, I would see the little poem, right? Yeah. And I would sing it because it was a song.
Right.
And it wasn't until years later that I realized nobody else does that.
Well, that's great. But everybody has their start somewhere. Yeah. I used to watch The Wonderful World of Disney when I was a little girl, and I'd see Davy Crockett and all these little folk heroes. And so at 5 years old, me and my girlfriend down the street, we started acting out these things, but I didn't know what acting was.
Right.
I just knew I wanted to imitate.
Right.
Is that something? Well, you weren't imitating with "Good morning." You were just coming out with it, weren't you?
Yeah, because the poems were there, and now I would say, I was setting text. I was, the lyrics were there, and I'm writing the music to the lyrics, but it was just something that came naturally.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It was a gift. And so in school, were you in the choir? Were you?
Well, let's see. Let's go back. I wanted to be a pianist.
So did you take lessons early?
Well, yes and no. We got me to a local piano teacher, and I outgrew her. So then she sent me to one of her students, and the student was about to have twins. So she said, "Let me send you to my teacher." And so this woman plays the celesta for the Met, and she
plays the what?
Celesta. Now, the celesta is it's a keyboard instrument, and the best example of it, the most well known, is the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies, which is in the ballet The Nutcracker. So when you hear that bum 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 bum,
that's
the
is.
celesta, right?
Wow, right. I learned that. So you went to this other piano teacher.
Yeah. And she said, because I was about 12 at this point, and that's very late to get professional lessons. And, or actually, I think I was 13. But what happens at this point is that she said, I want to see if I can get you into Manhattan School of Music. And I just didn't know what to say because it just was kind of unreal to go from, to go through all these phases so
How
quickly.
old were you?
I think I was 13. I think that was the summer
Wow,
I was 13.
amazing.
Yeah. So I get to Manhattan School of Music, and I was not able to register in time to study with the teacher that she wanted me to be in. So the teacher sent me to her student, and it was a young man who was just not impressed with this young woman from Long Island who is black, but don't tell anyone I said so. So there I am at 13, and I worked so hard to get there, and you have to understand the trek from where I was to get all the way out to the city. And I think we were 3 or 4 lessons into it, and he said, "You are never going to be a pianist. You can basically chop your fingers off. It's not going to damage your playing." Now, most people would say that's a horrible thing to say, and it really was, but he did me a favor because
It was a challenge, wasn't it?
actually, no, I was devastated. But I started hearing all of this music in my head. Because you think of mutants on what is that? The
Ninja Turtle?
no, mutants in not the Avengers, but the other one. But
Marvel?
yes, exactly, right. And you think at around puberty or just after they develop their powers,
Yes.
right? And so I started listening to this music in my head. It was just kind of, loud. And we were taking this jazz improv class at the same program. And I thought, since I'm not going to do anything in music, since this man has said it and he's the definitive expert,
Right.
I'm going to I'm going to write this music out, and this is going to be my kind of like a requiem. Well, 13, that's very dramatic, right? So I didn't know how to write the music out.
Oh,
So my junior high school band director was in some of the pop groups, pop R&B, like the Isley Brothers and
right.
Surface and some of those groups. And he recognized I was writing music. So he gave me music theory lessons to learn how to write them down.
Oh, wow.
Right. So he gets me to enter this competition. It was called ACTSO.
Oh, yes, with
Right.
NAACP.
Yes. So he gets me to do this, and I mean, it was one of these things where he's kind of dragging me. And I said, Mr. Collins, I am not, the man said I'm not going to do anything in music. And he said, well, just try it, just see. Well, I won first place.
See? Right.
Yes, yeah. So I said, oh, I'm a composer, and I called the piece Phase 2.
Wow. So, did you ever learn to? You do play the piano.
Yes.
You play it well.
Well, at
And
times,
this, no, but you do. And see, sometimes people kind of dash your hopes or try to dash your hopes.
Oh, absolutely.
And then here comes something else, and you say, wow, they think I'm great here, So, in college, did you compose some symphonies or something in college?
Well, actually, when I got into college, I had never had a real composition lesson. And I was a composition major. So they kind of put me into the class with, they had these guys, and they all knew each other from schools like Interlochen or the other programs. And they were all men, and I was the lone female and the lone African American. It was a miserable experience, but I hear that from other people who've gone to all types of conservatories. It's a very, very competitive thing, and you do get whited out. And so Oberlin College Oberlin Conservatory is on the same campus. It's at the same school as Oberlin College, and they have it's a private liberal arts college,
Right.
and they had black studies, and I thought, I need to take some classes outside of the conservatory
Right.
and learn something so that I can integrate all of this teaching that I'm getting and make it mine.
Right.
Yeah. Now, before that happened, though, I was about to give up. It was very, very difficult, a lot of pressure, and we had this one professor who would refer to our class, lady and gentleman. And, he was an important composer and, imported from Austria, so he was serious. And,
Right.
yeah. And,
Did he encourage you?
no, no.
I didn't think
no,
so.
No. So I nearly gave up. And it was it was the midway through my sophomore year. We had winter break. And my mother's stepmother lived around the corner from a composer. And, she's hearing a lot of this stuff. And she says, you need to meet this composer. And I was thinking, no, composers are mean and they don't like me. And I met Noel DaCosta, and we just bonded, that day. And he gave me, he taught me about black composers. He said, did you ever hear the music of other black composers? And I hadn't really thought about it, but no. And so he just had in his piano bench and stacks of these pieces. And they were by composers who I had never heard of, but they looked like me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
gave you a new energy,
Yes, it
right?
did. Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
So what did you get out of Oberlin Conservatory then? What did you start getting out of it that pushed you out into the forefront?
Well, I got two things. I got an amazing, incredible music education. I mean, they taught you things, specialized classes in notation, which is not fun to study, but it's very helpful. And, there's orchestration, there's instrumentation, there's all these tools. And they also exposed me to music that I had not heard about because we didn't come from a musical family.
Right.
Yes.
And so your exposure was
Oh,
non-existent.
absolutely. Absolutely.
It was non-existent.
Absolutely. Right.
Well, I want to kind of jump ahead a little bit
Okay.
and talk about Harriet Tubman. It was Harriet Tubman. The whole title was Harriet Tubman.
When I crossed that line to
When I
freedom.
crossed that line to freedom. And how did you get that job?
Well, it actually wasn't a job. I just decided, my teacher passed away, and it impacted me so deeply. And he was a father figure, and he died right after I got my doctorate. So I was thinking, all right, I need a new project. And at that time, I was teaching at a school, and I was writing orchestra music. And they did not have an orchestra, but they had a choir. So I wasn't even used to writing choral music. So they said, well, you need to write a piece for the choir. So I'm thinking about it, and I said, all right. I just had my first big orchestra success, and people were playing this piece, and I thought, all right, I'm going to write this piece. It's an oratorio. Now, an oratorio is if you think about Handel's Messiah, that's
Right.
probably the most famous
Right.
oratorio. So I was going to write something like that, and I was going to write it about a black woman. And Harriet.
What year was
Sorry.
this?
When was this? Oh heavens, longer than I care to remember.
Oh, okay. I just want
That
everyone to
long.
know that she was there
Right.
doing that before
Yeah.
before the movie. You
Yeah,
know,
I was about. I'm trying to. It was. I think this started about 15. It was like 15.
years ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So they had the choir.
Right. So I started out by research. I had read. I was trying to find a good biography on Harriet Tubman, and at that time there wasn't one. There was a woman called. Not, there was. Harriet Tubman, The Moses of Her People, and this was a period piece, and it was basically a hack journalist, and someone who's not a professional, and she's interviewing Harriet Tubman, who at this point was in her 90s, and were just advanced age, and it was written as a this was something that they wanted you to be against slavery. They wanted you to understand that women's suffrage was important. And so, the journalist had an agenda. But also, at that time, the language that they were using, I won't use it now, but will, it's offensive.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So, but I just went through that and I started highlighting any of the quotes that Tubman said. And then I wanted to know more. And then I read a book. It was a fiction book about Harriet Tubman. And I thought, okay, this is completely, completely wrong. This is another book with an agenda, and it was fiction. And I was just thinking, I want to know more about her. I want to know why it is that she went up and down the Northeast Corridor. And it just, you have this question,
Right,
and you have to
right.
answer it. Yeah.
So we have a couple of clips from Harriet, and we're going to show some of each of them because we're going. Time is going.
And
Her voice is phenomenal.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
And
is.
you said she just
She did that. She just performed that with the Toledo Symphony. I think it was last
what is
week
her
or
name?
something. That is Janina Burnett.
Her voice is amazing.
Yes, it
It's
is.
talk about gifts. Talk about gifts. So this weekend at the music hall,
Actually, it's next weekend.
I mean next weekend, sorry, March
That's all right.
6th, March 6th, right? And
March 6th and 7th.
7th. They're going to be presenting the Detroit Symphony. It's going to be presenting Black Bottom, along with next weekend is Classical Roots and all of that. This is going to be a fabulous weekend for you. And their tickets still available, aren't there, at the Detroit Symphony? All you have to do, well, you could go online for the Detroit Symphony and you can look at, they can show you the seats that are available and all of that. And the prices are so reasonable because I compare them with the prices I had to pay in New York to see. Oh my gosh, you got to take out your mortgage for some of the shows.
Oh,
You know
absolutely.
you do. And this is so phenomenal. And let's kind of quickly talk about Black Bottom.
Okay.
Because you did so much research
I did.
on Detroit's Black Bottom. What did you get from all of this?
Oh gosh, I got all of these stories, and the research just gives you it gives you a different sense of a neighborhood. You know, I came here and I saw the Black Bottom Street View exhibit, and we did a tour with Jamon Jordan, who is just absolutely fabulous.
And my former student. That is just, it's so funny because when you mentioned Jamon, I said, oh my God.
Yeah.
I've known him since he was 14. You know,
Yeah.
he is wonderful.
Yes, and he is a supreme educator. And
Yes.
if you have not taken his tour, you need to take his Black Bottom tour. He is fantastic. So I'm just taking notes, and he's teaching. You know, he's showing us all these different spots, and he does it from rote memory.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm looking at the pictures from the archival photographs that were in the Black Bottom Street View exhibit, and I'm thinking about the locations that Jamon had shared with us, and it gave me a sense of what it was that what direction I wanted to go in. And some of the things that really stood out, there was a hospital, and there were Black doctors that founded this hospital. And,
Dunbar?
Yeah.
Dunbar
Yes,
Hospital.
yes, yes. And there was a sad story about Ocean Sweet.
Yes,
That
I know that
I
story
learned,
well.
yes. One of my college professors, a mentor, had, when I told him I was doing this piece, he says, you have to read this book on Ocean
Ark of
Sweet.
Justice.
Right. And I was thinking, I didn't take your class. You were my host father. And so he's still giving me assignments all these years later. But, I read about that. I saw the Rosa Slade Gregg house.
Right.
And I thought about the determination of this woman who just says, wait a minute, you're saying that I can't live on this street because Black people can't live on the street? And so my girl, she moved the front entrance of her house
Onto John R.
Yes.
Yes.
And I thought, I just loved that story. So, there's also the Bethel AME Church, the Mother
Right.
Bethel,
Right.
which is just another fantastic place. And so a lot of that is wrapped up into this piece.
And this is your score. I can't read it, people, but this
turn it
is
around.
just amazing to me. It's so amazing.
So
that
this
she-
is the score.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's only going to be presented 2 days, which I mourn that. But it's it's on the 6th at 10:45 a.m. And then again on Saturday, which is the Classical Roots Day, but they have tickets for the 8 o'clock show available. Just look on the Detroit Symphony website or call the Detroit Symphony box office, because those tickets are practically gone. So you need to do that. And Kiru, I could have kept you on for a whole hour. I tell you, you're the one who said, oh, and we have so much to talk about, and you're so intriguing. You are so intriguing. I just love it. I just love you. I've gotten to know her over the past year, and a lot of people know that I wrote a play about the Ossian Sweet trial and the history of it, and then the trial itself.
Yes.
So that was something that's very close to my heart.
Yes.
And I can't wait to see it. I cannot wait. I have been anticipating this. And what is next for you?
Well, there's going to be, I'm just trying to think, there's going to be Knoxville Opera is presenting Harriet Tubman. So it's a new production, and that's always fantastic. And then there's going to be the world premiere of a piece that I wrote with Carmen Moore, and it's called Brer Rabbit. And
that's going to be something.
Yes,
That's going to be
yes.
something. Especially the children, little kids of the 50s. They used to read Brer Rabbit all the time. My
yes,
gosh.
but they would read the Joel Chandler Harris version of it.
Yeah.
And so we updated
Tar
it.
Baby and all that stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, we updated it. But you know that Brer Rabbit actually comes from I believe, it's Ghanaian culture.
Oh,
And it was a story about Anansi the spider,
yes.
who's the trickster god.
Right.
And as the Africans were enslaved and went through the Middle Passage, they would tell these stories. And I guess somewhere down the line, someone said, the spider is man, is trickster, is just not working out, so we're going to call him a rabbit. So the story is actually, it's an African folk story.
Wow, amazing. Well, you saw her here first, Detroit and the world, and I'm so excited. And you're going to be in town for another couple weeks, or?
I'm here until the 8th.
Oh, not long enough. I'm going to see if I could do something else with you, too. So, here she is, a woman composer, an African-American, and a genius, a gift from God, her talent was. Well, everyone, stay tuned for our next segment. We're going to get right on that right away, and we're going to end with some Harriet Tubman, too. Thank you so much.
The rumor says Then they'll sell her away. I'll tell you the truth, it'll work out, love.
I am back with two phenomenal women. First, she's a friend of the show now, State Representative Kyra Harris Bolden, and her policy director, Raven
Gilmore.
Right. You have a wonderful voice. You must have done
Don't
theater
get me
in your day.
Don't get me excited.
And Kyra, I'll call her Kyra.
That's
you
right.
have you have a wonderful program that's tomorrow on February 29th, right?
Yes. So we're having a criminal justice town hall. It's one of the things that I have been working on since I started in the legislature. When I was on the show last time, I informed you that my first bill was passed into law.
All right.
5 months in, it was criminal justice reform. I actually have another criminal justice reform bill on its way to the governor for signature. It's going to be signed March 19th. And I had two more bills.
What is that one?
Yes,
What is-
I will tell everything. But first, I'm sorry, the criminal justice town hall, I just wanted to show how much I'm passionate about the issue, but we're having criminal justice town hall and expungement clinic, and which is tomorrow, February 29th at Christian Tabernacle Church in Southfield. And so
On Franklin Road.
on Franklin Road, yes. And so what will be in the Family Life Center portion of the church. And so
That's such a big
it
complex.
is a big church, so I should be specific. But there's ample parking, ample free parking. But what we will have is our expungement clinic, and that will be from 9 a.m. to 12. And we'll have attorneys on site that will walk you through the expungement process. And you have all the information that you need in order to get your record clean if you qualify for an expungement.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Sure.
How can people be qualified? I mean, what people should be there? What should be on the record? What shouldn't be? And
Right. So I would encourage anyone that's looking to clean up their record to come and speak to an attorney, but we do have very strict expungement laws
Yeah.
in the state of Michigan. And so we kind of say it's like a rule of three. So if you have more than 3 felonies, you can only expunge one, or if you have a felony and 2 misdemeanors, you can only expunge like 1 misdemeanor. It's really weird and complicated. And so I really encourage people, if you are looking to get your record cleaned up, to talk to attorney, and you'll be able to do that tomorrow for free.
wow, that's great. Because
Yes.
attorneys certainly aren't free,
Yes.
are they?
Yes.
They're not.
Yes.
Right.
And oftentimes, if you do get an expungement, you're paying at least $1,500 for an attorney to walk you through the expungement process. And so we are providing this as a free service. And so I encourage people to come.
So, okay, say if I'm eligible for an expungement, what's next? I go to an attorney. What usually comes next?
That's a great question. So when you talk to the attorney, we'll go through a screening process to determine your eligibility, but then we'll also be able to help you fill out an application or just fill out the application for you and print it out. And so you'll have the application ready to go to return into the court. You'll also need to get fingerprinted, and we have information about how to secure your fingerprints.
What do you mean, secure your fingerprints?
So you have to go to your local local law
Michigan State Police,
enforcement
yes.
or the Michigan State Police and pay a sum of about $50 and they will fingerprint you and run kind of your background check to make sure that you are also eligible. It's a second kind of check.
Right.
And then you have to secure an order from the court that says basically what the crime was and that it's already been adjudicated. So whatever you're trying to expunge, you have to have that same order from the court. But we walk you through the entire process.
That's
we give you
great.
sample language so that you can present in front of the court. It's really comprehensive. And then we'll also give you resources in case you have questions.
Right. So this is really a service because there are a lot of people who have gotten out of the system, out of prison, and they've been doing well.
Yes.
I mean, it's been a time, and they should be able to get that off because once you get the expungement, you're more open to more jobs, right?
Absolutely. And I would like to talk more about that aspect, but we can give you more details
yes.
about the panels that we're going to have along with the expungement clinic.
And that's what you do, policy
I do.
director.
Yes, I am the policy director. Well, first off, thank you for having me, and also thank you to the rep.
Raven Gilmore, her personality is
she's great.
magnetic.
She's great.
Thank you very much. You're starting my morning off really well. So we have 3 panels, and they're going to start at 10:30 a.m. and they'll last until I believe 1:30. So the first one, we will be having a judges panel. So we'll have judges from the Oakland County area and also other areas. They're going to kind of discuss what does expungement or what does criminal justice reform look like from their point of view and that from their capacity. Then secondly, we'll have the attorneys panel, which will be from 12:30 to 1:30, I believe. Maybe mistaken, maybe 11:30 to 12:30. And they'll discuss, again, what does expungement look like from their purview. And then lastly, we'll end with state legislators. And so Representative Bowden will be hosting and moderating the first 2, and the last 2 will be moderated by Senator Jeremy Moss. And so we'll have representatives from the House and then also a senator, and they're going to discuss, what does criminal justice reform, what other bills that they have coming up, and what's in the process in the pipeline. So it'll be very educational.
Well, how can people get more information, say today? I want more information exactly where is Christian Tabernacle. There are a lot of people, this may sound really crazy to you, but there are a lot of people who don't go outside of Detroit. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They don't go into the suburbs. Mm-hmm. I know, I've known some people like that,
Yes.
And because a lot of times they're afraid that the system out in the suburbs is a lot harsher.
Sure.
And that they feel targeted some kind of ways.
Sure.
I remember years ago in Oak Park, like people get across 8 Mile and then they start slowing down to a creep, to a creep, just so afraid of getting stopped. And so you can give them those directions. Well, is there a number they
I can
could
give
call?
you the address, absolutely.
Or address, okay.
So the address is 2655 Franklin Road, and that's Southfield, Michigan, 48033, I believe.
Yes.
If you have questions, you can call our office or our number. It's 517-373-1788. That's 517-373-1788. There's someone in the office right now, so if you do call now, someone will pick up and give you that information. But yes, that's it.
Why is, because people are having these expungement fairs, why did all of a sudden the past few years they've become very, very popular? Where were they before?
Yes, that is a great question, and I can't speak to that because I wasn't in office a few years ago. I'm still
I
working
know.
on my year in a couple months. But I think that there has been a lot of cooperation in our state legislature and a lot of push from the business community, actually. The business community has really been pushing for expungement reform because they're having a hard time hiring people that have had convictions from 20 or 30 years ago. And it's really preventing people from applying because they're afraid they'll get denied because they don't want people to know. But it's
Yeah.
also stopping some state licensures. If you have certain convictions, there may not be an expiration date on that. So
What do you mean, expiration date on a conviction?
Yeah, so if you are if you are seeking a state licensure, some state licensures are you cannot apply
A
for.
licensure
Such as if you want to
a liquor license.
Well, yeah, well, definitely a liquor license, but not even just that. Insurance licenses and things like that. If you have a conviction, I used to sit on the insurance committee in the House, and a gentleman came in and said he had an OWI, which is operating while intoxicated, so a DUI, from 10, 20 years ago, and he was not able to obtain a state licensure for insurance because of that.
Wow.
So it is really, really restrictive to businesses or people starting businesses. And so that is where I believe the wave has come from, is the push from the business community. But, we have been advocating for laws for
Criminal
and
justice
people,
reform.
people that have come before me have been advocating this for a long time, and so I am happy that everybody is making it a priority now, but we do know that there have been people on the front lines of this issue for decades. So.
Right, right. Can you tell me a little about your background and how you got to her?
Got it. Well, actually, I will start where she and I left off. So Kyra and I went to law school together. So she graduated a year before I did, and she always kind of played a very sisterly kind of role towards me, mentorship. Take this class, consider this. So that's where she and I met. And then upon graduating in 2015, I probably shouldn't have said that, I'm telling my age.
You're so old. No, I'm just kidding.
I received this really neat opportunity to teach beginning law courses, like first-year law courses in France. So I moved to France. I lived there for a year and a half, and I taught, what we call 1L courses. So constitutional law, criminal law, torts, and things like that. Then I returned back to the States.
Now,
Yes.
if you did that in France, aren't their laws different, or were you teaching American students? What was that?
I was teaching French students American law. So their code
okay.
is different. They do follow the civil code, civil law. And actually, Louisiana has something very similar to that, as we practice common law, which is closely assimilated to or similar to
Okay.
England. Yes. So I did that for a year and a half, and then I returned back to the States, and I believe a professor put my name in the hands of an organization called Humanity in Action. So what they do, they're a business that started about 25 years ago, and they wanted to see how communities can protect their marginalized citizens. So the lady who started it, she did her dissertation at Columbia University on how, I believe, Sweden or Norway protected their Jewish immigrants from the Third Reich, or the Nazi Empire. So she said if they can do that, then other communities have a greater onus or burden to protect their marginalized citizens. So they wanted to start one in Detroit. So I co-directed the inaugural fellowship program. We brought kids all around the world to the city of Detroit, and we did a comprehensive analysis of the city since the post-67 rebellion. So after some people call it the riots.
I call it the riot.
Oh, do you?
I was there. I was on the
Were you there?
street.
Oh.
I'm in a book.
Okay, got it.
Because the weird thing about that, the only reason I call it a riot is because at around 6 o'clock in the morning, a friend of my mother's who was going to take me back to college lived on 12th Street and couldn't get out of his driveway. And he called and said, there's a little riot going on over here. And of course, I waited till 8 o'clock to call my boyfriend's house and talk to his mother. And then I told him there's a riot on 12th, and we went over there. But anyway,
Yeah, we can have that.
a lot.
discussion.
Yeah, a lot of people do call it a rebellion.
I argue
but
that it was a political rebellion. I think individuals in the cities, they were tired of unfair or unjust treatment.
Yeah,
But we can debate
Yeah,
that.
there were a lot. No, there
Okay.
were a lot of people who joined in
Yes.
for that, but there were a lot of people who were just like me coming down, and
Yes.
and then well, we won't talk about.
I hear it.
I may have to go to the expungement.
We can have that argument. And actually, there I met Baba Jaman Jordan.
Yeah.
Brought him in, Marsha Philpott.
My student,
So,
I
yes.
know Marsha.
You
I know
know
all.
Marsha?
They were all my
Really?
kids. Went to Highland Park.
Well, they were a great partner with us, and they gave us a lot of information. So there we, studied the city of Detroit since '67, and we looked at it from a health perspective. We met with doctors who were helping to try
Yes.
to reduce SIDS and mortality rates and asthma rates in like the Delray area, and then we also met attorneys who were advocating, in Lansing, against state or property repossessment or. What is it? I'm trying to think of property, taking it back. People were losing their homes due to the property tax being assessed incorrectly.
Right, right.
So I saw those individuals working hard, but I didn't see anyone in the economic sphere helping individuals kind of understand finances and building wealth. So I kind of got traumatized for the good, and I moved to Merrill Lynch, and I worked there for about going on 3 years. And then I got a
Okay.
phone call from Representative Bolden. She said she needed a policy director, and my past, or our past dealings have always, kind of informed me or let me know that when she says something or requests something, just do it.
Okay.
It's really quick.
Be a boss. You know?
She's a boss.
And you're a boss too. Because someone needs somebody like her.
She's
you know.
amazing.
Uh-huh.
She's amazing.
Yeah, I could just tell the way she speaks and the way she about it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Well, you made a good point. I didn't mean to cut you off. But, you said back in the day, or there's still a sentiment with individuals about crossing 8 Mile or these areas. Things are changing. You're sitting next to an young African American woman who's a state representative for the 35th district, and her policy director, someone who looks like me.
Right.
Things are changing.
Oh, I'm well aware. I'm well aware. I've been in Oakland County for
a long time.
41 years.
Perfect.
But there were some people who didn't want to come visit
Oh,
me at
yeah,
one time.
absolutely.
I taught in Southfield Public Schools. So,
Yes.
I started teaching there when it was majority white.
Yes.
And then, of course,
Yes.
it changed
Yes.
and so forth. And I understand what you're saying, but there were people because they
There
felt
still
they
are.
were
True.
unreasonably apprehended.
Absolutely.
And I know of people, one guy who actually lived in Oak Park, who got followed home, and then they slammed him against his
Oh, no.
garage
Yeah.
door.
Yes.
This was years ago. This was back
Yeah.
in the late 70s, early 80s. And he had been paranoid about the police, and he didn't do, and then
Understandably
they didn't take him to jail or anything.
Yes.
But it's just that we do have to do some criminal justice reform. Can prior offenders, can they vote?
Yes.
That's what
Yes.
a lot of them don't realize.
Yes.
They should be.
And you should.
Yes.
And
Right.
you should. When you are, and not there are some states that are not like that. But here, once you are released, your full rights as a citizen are restored and you can vote. And it's so important that you exercise that right that you weren't able to have while you were incarcerated.
Well, let's talk about this: the census.
Yes. Yes. We must.
Absolutely.
we must fill out the census
Yes.
forms. I think that, and I know that when I was in college, it wasn't a priority for me. I didn't really understand the impact or what it meant, or the government is in my business, and I don't want them to know where I am or where I live.
Right.
And but now, obviously, being older and being a legislator, I know how important the census is. The census not only determines resources that come to your individual communities, particularly federal resources that come to your communities, it determines redistricting. It determines who represents you in Lansing and in Congress.
Yes.
Because each district is broken up by population. And if there are less people, for example, in the city of Detroit, they may loop in other communities in order to have that population represented.
right.
That determines who your representation is going to be. And we know we have a huge gerrymandering issue in the state
Yes.
of Michigan.
Yes.
Fortunately, that won't necessarily be an issue because we'll have an independent commission as a result of Proposal 2. But we still need to make sure that everybody is counted, that everybody is represented, so that your representation can be accurate and reflected in the state of Michigan and on the federal level.
And it means money for communities.
Absolutely.
Too.
Absolutely. Resources, federal dollars, resources, everything. It's so important.
And I was at an event about the census earlier last year with Mayor Duggan and Big Sean. They had him kind of promoting it for younger people. And the whole thing is they don't give your information out to
No.
anybody.
No, it is illegal for them to do so. They can be sued and they can go to jail if they give out your information.
Yeah, because a lot of people, like you said, say, I don't want them to know I'm here, please. And as far as voting, it's so important when it comes to voting.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Gosh.
Absolutely.
And speaking of voting, everyone should register to vote too.
Yes.
Everyone should register, and now we have any reason absentee, which means you can vote from home. Anyone can vote from home. Get your absentee ballot, get out your laptop, get out your mailers. You can research people right before you decide to vote, and have discussions with your family and fill out your ballots together. That's what a lot of constituents of mine have said that they are doing. They have family discussion, and they whip out and they have debate, and then they all fill out their ballots together and put them in the mail.
Wow. Now, Raven,
Yes.
policy director, I wanted to go back to this.
Sure.
What does this mean?
It means a lot of things. And also, it may mean something different for our office and other individuals. So I'll give an example that's a little bit more exclusive to our office. So I guess we're fortunate, or maybe maybe not so fortunate, or I think we are fortunate. The representative, she sits on two major super committees, both the Judiciary and Ways and Means. So a lot of bills, if they don't come through our ideals, if they don't come through the Judiciary, they come through Ways and Means. So essentially, the office sees every single thing that will go to the floor. So what I do for her, there's a process. You kind of read them all, get some more background information, call individuals who are advocating for particular bills, and kind of take them to task, ask them questions. And then I said, she and I both went to law school, so I'll bring this information to her, and then she and I will have a bit of a debate as to why she should consider voting a particular way or not. So that's what our office looks like.
You know, this morning I have had genius women on this show this morning. I mean, guys, starting with a black composer, and now you two, it's her being able to converse with someone who has a background somewhat similar in the law, you know, and that's very important. That it's nothing like somebody who has your back. So let's talk about the expungement fair one more time.
Yes.
Tell the audience again.
So the expungement clinic will be at Christian Tabernacle Church, February 29th. From
Saturday.
Tomorrow, February 29th, from 9 to 12. And from between 10:30 and 2:30, we'll have panels of different leaders talking about criminal justice reform.
Well, 9 to 12. Then you're going to stay till 2:30. Oh, what is this?
So the clinic is from 9 to 12, and it will be in one room.
Okay.
And then the panels will start at 10:30 in a different room, and will run to 2:30.
Great.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. And so I encourage people to come and stay for the entire event. So if you aren't eligible, you can see what's being done in the arena of criminal justice reform, and so you can be informed and be ready.
Okay, thank you, ladies,
Thank you.
for coming on this morning. Wonderful. I love this.
Thank you.
I love this. Stay tuned. We have a great table talk for you this morning. A lot of different things going on, and two people that you need to meet. See you soon.